Hi everybody.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining us. You're watching our Facebook Live book recommendations, and this month's theme is spooky and suspenseful. It's one of our favorite topics, so we had a hard time narrowing it down.
Yep.
If you think someone should know about a title that you think is spooky or suspenseful, make sure to put it down in the comments below. And if you have any questions, you can also comment, so don't forget that. So, don't forget, everything we're talking about tonight is in our catalog, and Erin, you have a display?
I do. So anything that is YA that I recommend will be, as soon as we're done here, on the display in the teen room. It can be checked out at any time.
Yeah, that's great. So don't forget to log on to that catalog, make a list. All of these are available from your library. So just like last time, we're going to be going back and forth, taking turns talking about different books. So Erin is going to start us off tonight.
Yay, I'm so excited. Okay, so I'm starting off with a teen title. I have a couple of children's, but I'm going to start off with a teen. So the movie that just came out, Midsummer, was very, very creepy and cool looking and terrifying, but really good. And I kind of wanted to go with that horror theme. So I wanted to start with May Queen Murders by Sarah Jude. For one thing, I think this cover is absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, so May Queen Murders is about a young girl named Ivy Templeton who lives in a commune. She's very quiet, she's very reserved, very different from her, I don't know how to put, there we go. Very different from her cousin Heather. They used to be incredibly close, but now they are no longer close, and Ivy is starting to resent Heather. So in their commune, they used to have a celebration called the May Queen Celebration that the town elders have decided to start up again after 20 years. And Ivy is not surprised when Heather is picked to be the May Queen. Now, everyone in town doesn't seem to be surprised when Heather goes missing a few days after becoming May Queen, which is very similar to the murders that happened 20 years ago to the last May Queen. So once Heather goes missing, everyone seems to just kind of accept it, except for Ivy, who wants to find out what happened to her cousin and sets out to track her down. So it's creepy and suspenseful. It's got like really, really atmospheric. So this one I actually recommend more for adult readers who like YA, because it has more of the sappy, not even sappy, like the romance aspect that's more popular with like new age readers rather than YA. YA readers, of course, will like this, but this is a really great crossover topic. Yeah. So this is The May Queen Murders by Sarah Jude.
If you're just hopping on, don't forget to say hello or give us a like or a heart or something. We're talking about spooky and suspenseful staff picks. So my first one is called Unburied Carole by Josh Malerman. Josh Malerman wrote The Bird Box, which became, I'm sure you know, a really popular TV series. This particular book was nominated for the Bram Stoker Award. Oh, I saw a like. Yeah. Thank you. Nominated for the Bram Stoker Award for horror novels in 2018. And it has like a Western theme to it. So it's a little bit of an historical story, which I thought was interesting. So the whole thing is that Carole has the mysterious disease where every now and then it seems like she's dead, but she's not. She just appears dead to, medical things in the Old West. So only two people know about her sickness, her lost lover, Moxie, and her husband, Dwight, who coincidentally married her for her money. So the next time that Carole falls under this, weird coma, Dwight immediately announces her funeral, that she's dead. And somehow Moxie hears word of this, and he gets on his horse and rides out to save Carole. The thing is that Carole is awake the whole time, so she knows what's happening, and she's trying to wake herself up. It's supposed to be a twisted take on the Sleeping Beauty tale, which I thought sounds really interesting, but it's that whole primal fear about being buried alive and trapped and claustrophobic. So that's Josh Malerman, writer of The Bird Box, and Unburied Carole.
Cool. So my next title is another YA title, and we're kind of following the weird diseases path. This is a book that has been talked of everywhere. It is becoming a massively popular title in both like adults who like reading YA and YA readers. I just started listening to this on audiobook today, and I could not stop listening to it, so I'm really in love with it. It's really good.
Awesome.
So this is called Wilder Girls by Rory Power. So Wilder Girls is about a girl named Hetty who attends a posh boarding school out in the middle of like nowhere on a remote island. She's also the first to show signs of what they call the tox, T-O-X, which is a mysterious illness that affects people differently. So with Hetty, it shows up by sealing her right eye shut. And with her best friend Byatt, it shows up as a second skeleton, like a second exterior skeleton. Like other people, it shows up differently, like glowing skin and scales and glowing hair. And for the most part, people can adapt to it. But those who can't adapt are sent to the infirmary. Now, at the same time that this talk is happening, the entire school is shut down by the CDC while they try to figure out a cure. So everyone is just stuck there. The teachers start falling prey to the tox. The students start falling prey to the tox. And then eventually, Hetty's best friend, Byatt, gets another flare-up of the tox and is sent to the infirmary. And Hetty, not wanting to lose her best friend, goes after Byatt to try and save her. So it's absolutely amazing. It's been hailed as an LGBT feminist manifesto in like a horror novel genre.
Okay.
I'm really loving it. It's very atmospheric. It's really good. So that is, again, Wilder Girls by Rory Power.
All right, so my next one is by the author Paul Tremblay. He wrote Head Full of Ghosts, which got a lot of buzz when that came out, but this one's getting a lot of buzz too. So this actually won the Bram Stoker Award in 2018 for a horror novel, so that's really great for a horror book to win that award. It adds a twist to the home invasion horror story, and it's called A Psychological Tale of Suspense that recalls Stephen King's Misery and Ruth Ware's In a Dark, Dark Wood. So the whole story is there's this little girl, Wen, and she's on a remote vacation with her dad's at this lake in New Hampshire. And she's outside playing all alone, and this big guy comes out of nowhere and says his name's Leonard. And at first she's scared, but Leonard's so nice that they end up playing and hanging out, and they sort of become friends in that day. But then Leonard turns to Wen and says, "I'm sorry, but what is about to happen is not your fault," which sounds ominous.
Yeah.
So then all these other big guys come out of the woods, and they have weapons, but she can't identify them. She's just a little girl. So it's sort of like a survival story. It's a little bit apocalyptic, I've heard. So it's supposed to be very tense. So if that's what you're looking for this October, Cabin at the End of the World.
Very fun. So the next title I have is a children's title recommended by one of our children's librarians, Rosada. Since I am not up on my children's literature, I had to go to someone else to help me with this, and she gave me some titles that she absolutely loves. So the one that she gave me was called The Legend of Jack Riddle by H. Eason. So I am a big fan of creepy fairy tales and original fairy tales, and this book is rife with just fairy tale lore and fairy tale style. So it is about a young boy named Jack Riddle who is sent to stay with his many, many times great-grandmother, or not great-grandmother, great-aunt named Gigi. And she has a lot of behaviors, like she looks eternally young, she wears a lot of really creepy big black hats, and she wants to turn him into a living statue to teach him a lesson about cell phone usage.
Okay.
But she decides, instead of turning him immediately into a living statue, she is going to send him on multiple quests to with like a bunch of sidekicks that were also victims of her magic.
Oh, okay.
And so they have to go on these multiple quests to essentially break her curse. And you like will run into a bunch of fairy tale creatures that you know of, so like Ariel's shark-like sisters are around, and heavily armored fae people. So it's got like a lot of fairy tale elements, sort of in line with the original Grimm's fairy tales. So that is The Legend of Jack Riddle by H. Eason.
Okay, next I have one by David Mitchell. If you're a fan of the Mitchellverse, you definitely want to check this one out if you haven't already. This is, of course, Slate House. It has a really cool map inside that I really like looking at, even though I haven't read it yet. So this is, of course, Mitchell by the author of who wrote The Bone Clocks and Cloud Atlas. This is actually supposed to be a companion to The Bone Clocks. And the whole story spans 5 decades, and it's set in Britain. So if you go down a certain alley in a certain, near a British pub at a certain time of the year or whatever, when the planets are aligned, you might be invited into a house. A brother and a sister live there, and they occasionally invite in strangers, people who are loners, like a divorced policeman or a shy teenager, that sort of thing. Okay. And at first everything seems nice in the house, but then they realize they can't get out, and of course things start to go wrong. So this got a lot of really interesting reviews. It was named one of the best books of the year back in 2016 by several people, the San Francisco Chronicle, NPR, Los Angeles Times, Bookpage, Kirkus Reviews. The San Francisco Chronicle said it's like Shirley Jackson's Hill House or the Overlook Hotel from The Shining, which I love. And it's called a Thin Sliver of Hell, the Slate House. Anthony Doerr, who wrote All the Light That We Cannot See, he said it's a Dracula for the new millennium and a Hansel and Gretel for grown-ups, which I love fairy tales too, so I wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Cloud Atlas, and so I'm really excited because I haven't read that one yet, and I'm just like, I want to read it so bad.
Sounds like a good one.
Okay, so my next one is a young adult title, and I'm really excited. I have not read this, but I have been part of this multimedia experience that goes with this book. So I'm a huge podcast fan. I listen to an absurd amount of podcasts, and one of them that was released, I would say about 2 years ago or so, was a podcast called The Girls. And it was this really interesting story that was following a murder from the point of view of a podcaster who was researching it. So at the same time that podcast was released, a book was released that was a companion to the podcast, or the podcast was a companion to it. Wow. And the book in question is called Sadie by Courtney Summers. Now, this book is really fun. I'm just really excited about it. So it is about a young girl named Sadie, whose little sister Maddie was like her pride and joy. She loved her little sister because their mother was not around. She was not useful. She was just very, very dismissive of her daughters. So Sadie basically becomes the caretaker to Maddie. Okay. Now when Maddie is 13 and Sadie is 19, their mother goes missing, and Maddie goes on this huge long quest to go and track down their mother, which then leads to the death of Maddie when she's 13. Now Sadie is working to find out who killed her sister and kill him. So at the same time that the story is being told from her perspective, a podcaster is doing that theme of investigative journalism about murders that's happened really recently, and he's doing his own podcast on this at the same time that she is telling her story of searching for her sister. And so interwoven between the story of Sadie telling her story is a transcript from the podcast. So you can either read the book and listen to podcasts, or just read it all at the same time. So this is a really fun book. If you like podcasts, this is also a really great one for like murder mysteries. So that is Sadie by Courtney Summers.
Okay, so for my next one, this is more suspenseful than spooky. It's being called a noir gem. So if you like the old style noir, this one might be for you. It is Sunburned by Laura Lippman. A little bit of glare there, but I think you can see it. So
there we go, like that.
For this one, it was named one of the most anticipated books of 2018 by a bunch of people: Bustle, Pop Sugar, Wall Street Journal, Entertainment Weekly, Book Riot, a whole bunch of folks. So this one has a little bit of a Bonnie and Clyde feel to it for me. There's these two people who meet in Delaware. One is named Polly. She says, "I'm heading out west." And his other name is Adam, and he says, "I'm moving on too." But there's some sort of chemistry between them. They stick together, and they just get sort of intertwined with each other. But they both hold lethal secrets too. So there's some suspense elements, and they get so wound up and ensnared in each other's lives, neither of them knows how to get away from each other. So Gillian Flynn, who wrote Gone Girl, said that this is a dark, gleaming noir gem and that you should read it. Stephen King said it's as suspenseful as hell and that Lippman writes like a dream. Kirkus gave it a starred review, said it's a page-turning pleasure, and Booklist also gave it a starred review for being extremely suspenseful. So if you're looking for some suspense this October, this might be for you.
So my next book has a little bit of a local flair. I recently just finished listening to the audiobook of this and I really loved it. So my next book is a YA title called These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. So These Witches Don't Burn is set in Salem. It is about modern day Salem, about witches who are called elementals. They are able to control the elements, earth, wind, fire, etc. They're not too dissimilar from the casters of old, who are casters that were part of the witch trials. They do exist still, but she is not one of them. The main character is Hannah. She's an elemental witch who lives in Salem. She has just gone through an incredibly public breakup with her girlfriend, like incredibly public, screaming, yelling. It was bad. And no one knows why. None of the friends have any idea, but the breakup was bad. So at a party a few weeks later after the breakup, there is a scream off in the distance and they find a raccoon which has been killed and a pentacle which has been written in the ground in the raccoon's blood, leading Hannah to believe that they are being harried by a blood witch that she has a personal history with. So she and her ex now have to work together, because they're both witches, to figure out who the blood witch is and stop her before she can do any more harm. All at the same time, Hannah's got a bit of a crush on the new girl in town. So it's a fun witch story. It's a really great romance. I definitely enjoyed it. And that is called These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling.
Okay, so for my next one, this is by an author who hasn't had a book out for a long time. So if you enjoyed Perks of Being a Wallflower, you might want to check out Imaginary Friend. Of course, this probably seems like a pretty big departure from the Perks of Being a Wallflower, but according to Stephen, he thinks there are some similar themes. So this just came out October 1st, hot off the presses. The story for this one is that there's a single mom, Kate, and her son Christopher, who's young, and Kate's in an abusive relationship, so she takes Christopher and they flee to a small town in Pennsylvania. There's one road out, one road in, so they feel safe. Everything's going great, except one day Christopher disappears, and he's gone for about a week. So of course the mother's frantic, but when he reappears, he seems fine physically. Mentally, he's changed. There's a voice in his head, and it's telling him that if he doesn't build a treehouse by Christmas, then everyone in the town, his mom, everybody, will be changed forever. So mysterious and spooky. People magazine said it's one of the best books for fall this year. Kirkus said it's a horror yarn that would make Stephen King proud. Booklist said it walks the line between fantasy and horror, and it's like a season of Stranger Things. Emma Watson, the actress, says it's a masterpiece, and apparently she's a big reader. Okay. So you might want to give it a shot. It's Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky.
Cool.
I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
I have never figured that out. I'm always the one who's like, you should read Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I'm like, it's Stephen Chbosky, I think. So yeah, no, I have no idea how to say it.
Okay.
So my next title is a children's book, also recommended by Rosada. So this is a middle grade horror novel, kind of introducing those middle grades to the horror genre. This is called Guest by Mary Downing Hahn. It is, as the title says, a changeling tale. So this is about a young girl named Molly Cloverall who adores her baby brother Thomas. Now in the community that they live in, if someone praises a child, the fae people will come and take the child away. So Molly, falling prey to this, and one day tells her brother just how wonderful he is, and the next day the fae people come and take away her brother, leaving them with what her mother calls Guest, because she does not think he is going to stay. Guest starts to cause a problem with her family. It drives her father away, throws her mother into depression, and so Molly decides to take things into her own hands. She takes Guest and she goes off to find the fae folk and get Thomas back. So it's a really good introduction to the changeling myth, and it's gotten some really good responses, some really good reviews. I heard it was really good. I've not read it yet, but I might.
Sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, my next one is nonfiction for everybody who likes nonfiction, and maybe
So excited for this.
maybe you don't believe in ghosts, I'm not sure, but this is called Ghostland. And when this first came out in 2016, NPR said that it was one of the great reads and one of the best books to pick for that year. Hey, thanks for giving us a like. Maybe someone's read this. So the whole premise is the story of the author, Colin, and he goes all across America, and he goes to all the famously haunted places. So like the Winchester House and Salem, he goes all across America, meeting with people and hearing these haunted stories. But he goes around, sort of beyond the tourism trap of, how haunted things can be sometimes, and gets to the history of it, which I thought sounded really interesting. And he goes so deep that he finds sort of, this connection between all the stories, that there's stories of longing and loss and tragedy. And that's sort of what leads to it becoming a ghost story and an urban legend, all those sorts of things. So if you want to check this out, if you're a nonfiction fan, you want to have like a spooky travel across the U.S. through a book, you might want to give this a shot.
I just downloaded that as an audiobook to listen to.
Oh, awesome.
I'm so excited because I am a big sucker for like creepy haunted places. I'm an absolute chicken, terrified, but I want to read about the places so that I don't actually have to go there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really excited to like listen to that. Okay, so my next book is another YA title. This one's a weird one. I need you to go with me on it because I'm really excited about it. It's really
Sounds
fun.
good.
I started reading it this morning.
Cool.
And I was really I was just drawn in immediately, so I'm very excited about this one. So, the one I have is The Good Demon by Jimmy Cajoles.
Linnea said she's putting these on our list.
Thanks,
Linnea.
Okay, so I have The Good Demon by Jimmy Cajoles. The tagline for this is, "Not all demons are bad, are they?" So The Good Demon is about a young girl named Claire who is best friends with her demon. She called her demon her or she. She was very close to her demon until the local preacher performed an exorcism on her and drove her demon away. Without her demon, she feels incredibly lost and depressed, and she wants nothing more than to get her demon back. The only problem is that she has 3 clues to where her demon is. It is be nice to him, June 20th, and remember the stories. So as she's trying to find her, she's also becoming very close to the son of the preacher who expelled her.
Ooh.
Yeah. And at the same time is starting to discover a very sinister thing happening in her town. Now, the other reason I like this book is I like books that have like little fun additions to them. So like the podcast for Sadie, I like it when it's a little bit extra. And so this one has these beautiful illustrations in them that are just absolutely gorgeous. And they're very fun to look at. They add a lot to the story. I just got to one of the illustrations this morning and I was like in love with it. But I just love the wood etched look to them.
It's nice.
So this book, it sounds really weird, but it's really good. It's got a ton of amazing reviews. I'm trying to think what else. So Kirkus Review gave it a star. It's gotten a ton of just like accolades. It's weird, but it's worth a try.
Sounds fun.
I know.
Yeah.
I love it. I just like the weird ones. They're so good. So yeah, that is The Good Demon by Jimmy Cajoles.
Okay, so now we just have a couple little quick books to show you. Did you want to show them the babysitter ones?
So these were recommendations, once again, by Rosada. I thought it'd be nice after all the kind of creepy books to give something that's like a nice, easy read, especially for people who are a little bit younger, but like the creepy stories.
Yeah.
So these are not in the babysitter, like the Babysitter's universe, like, the Babysitter's Club. That's not in the same universe, it just has a similar title. These are called the Babysitting Nightmares. So I have 2 of them. There's 3 out. It's Babysitting Nightmares, The Shadow Hand, and the Twilight Curse. So I'm trying to center them. It's so hard. But yeah, so the Shadow Hand and the Twilight Curse, they are essentially what they seem like. They're babysitting stories that involve creepy things. So one is about a haunted old theater, and another one girl is babysitting an actor's daughter. So in that one, this one is babysitting an actor's daughter. In this one, it is a similar changeling story, like the one I mentioned earlier about a child that is stolen away through a window and the babysitters have to save it. So seems really fun, a spooky friendship kind of story. So spooky, not scary. But yeah, so that's a recommendation from Rosada.
Sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to address everyone who's wondering what they're going to carve their pumpkin like this year. We have 2 books by this guy. He's written 2 extreme pumpkin books. His name's Tom Nardone, and he actually has a website, and he does yearly pumpkin carving contests. So he has a lot of really cool stuff on his website. We have 2 of his books if you need some ideas. I just wanted to show you a couple of the fun pictures. So this one is worm-infested pumpkin. I don't think it's really worms, though. I think it's just like gummy worms.
I hope so.
But I can't carve pumpkins. I'm not good at it. I dream about it, though. Oh, and here's one. The Carrie pumpkin from the Stephen King Carrie. Oh, there we go. That one just looks fun. So if you need any ideas for Halloween decorating, carving, costumes, don't forget that we not only have awesome fiction.
We have a ton of good nonfiction.
Lots of good nonfiction. All of this is in our catalog, so feel free to jump on the catalog, order a few things. If you have any questions, don't forget you can put them down in the comments. Don't
we
forget
got a couple more minutes, I think, until we're done.
Yeah,
so.
well, don't forget we're coming back next month.
Yep, we are.
Yeah.
So next month's theme is holiday and winter reads, and that's going to be on November 13th at the same time.
Yes.
Very interested about these because they're going to be cheesy, warm reads.
Yeah, you know, some holiday themed things, some winter settings. We're thinking about putting in a few cookbooks to get ready for some holiday cooking. If you have any thoughts about holiday or winter reads that you think we should share, please feel free to post them below.
Yes, please.
Otherwise, thanks so much for joining us, and I hope you have a spooky October.
Bye.
Bye.